Day.
And I'm Richard Day.
We're both chiropractors.
We've been in practice together for 11 years.
Married for 10.
With 3 beautiful little girls.
We know it's possible to have an exceptional practice that's built around your life.
Because we've done it.
So we've created this podcast,
the Lifestyle Practice Builders Podcast.
We'll interview chiropractors, answer questions, and bring you resources to help build and grow your practice.
So let's get this party started.
Welcome back to the Lifestyle Practice Builders Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Haley Day.
And I'm your other host, Dr. Richard Day.
It's so nice to have you back on the podcast.
Yeah, it's been a while. I have been doing this and that and a little bit of everything else, but it's great to be back. Looking forward to today's show.
I'm sure everyone's a little tired of listening to me.
No, you do great, and these episodes you're putting out are fantastic. But it's fun for me to get back in front of the microphone and contribute to helping everybody out here and talking about the business of chiropractic.
Yeah, and I'm excited for our topic today for anyone who wants to be a chiropractic associate or anyone who is in an associate position and maybe not thoroughly enjoying it and kind of rethinking where they're at, then this will be a great episode for you. This week is an exciting episode for us and for all of you wanting to find an associate position after graduation. We're going to talk about becoming a chiropractic associate, what you can be doing during school, what you need to do your last year in school, and the timeline that you'll need to work with when you're applying for these positions. We're also going to answer questions that you all have submitted on Instagram and introduce you all to the Ideal Associate course that we've been putting together for months. If you need a little help walking through these steps of finding your ideal associate position, then stay to the end to hear about the course and how the small investment will make the world of difference for you and your future. We'll also hear from Felicia Campbell. She just opened her own practice this past week. Congratulations, Felicia. Rich helped Felicia find her ideal associate position that she's been working the past couple years that led her toward practice ownership and success. So I'm excited for you guys all to hear from her. There's a special launch price for the Ideal Associate course. We don't typically discount the resources that we've created. If you followed us for any time, they're on our website at those prices. But since we are creating this course currently, we are having a pre-sale price while we continue to build out the 5-module course that will roll out on October 12th. You can buy it for more than half off. And we're going to talk about the course today. But if you're impatient like Rich or eager like me, then you can get started by taking a quick quiz that we created for you at theidealassociate.com. So theidealassociate.com. This quiz will help you figure out where you're at in the process of finding a great associate position. It's also going to let you kind of see what you're needing to work on while you're in school leading up to finding this position. There are so many things to consider and do while in school so that you can not only find the ideal associate position after school, but to make sure that you are the ideal person to fill that position when the time comes. So you want to be the chiropractor you've worked so hard to become, and we totally get that. And you want to earn a living that will support you, your family, and your lifestyle. So if that interests you, then keep listening to today's show.
So let's get to today's topic. Haley has spent the last few weeks talking about the options you have after graduation and all the things you should consider when choosing. So if you haven't listened to those episodes yet, you definitely want to check them out. If you keep coming back to being a chiropractic associate as the best decision for you, then you want to listen up. When you're in school from day one, some of the things you should be doing are working in a chiropractic office. This may not be for everybody, depending on your course load and what it takes for you as a student. Some people need a lot of study time and other people don't. But if it works for you, some sort of a part-time job in a chiropractic office as a CA can really help out. Haley did that, I know, when we were in school.
Yeah, I actually worked in a chiropractic office during undergrad. So I had started even 5 years before entering chiropractic school. I had been working in a chiropractic office. And then once I got into school, I worked for a chiropractor the whole time going through there. And they can be really flexible. You can work, some weeks I didn't work at all if I had boards or finals. And then other weeks I worked a lot more during the breaks and when my schedule at school was more light. So I had more time to spend there and to beginning that experience. Another thing you can do is just meeting chiropractors at seminars, at networking events, at alumni events at the school, and meeting these chiropractors, you are getting to know them, and the possibility of maybe going to their office and working in their office or visiting their office. So another option there is shadowing in different offices.
And that can happen in person. You can also meet other chiropractors online in Facebook groups and other communities where chiropractors sort of mingle. You can get to know folks, especially if you're looking at relocating at a different state, other than where your school is. But so much information can be gleaned from those interactions, and relationships can be formed, even just, surface relationships. You might not realize this, but you could be making an impression on your potential future employer just in a casual conversation. So you definitely want to put yourself in the position to be able to meet those people.
Yeah, and you can meet them when you're taking those seminars for the specialty that you enjoy. And, you might go to their office and see how it operates and not like some aspect of it. Or you might decide maybe another specialty might be better for you, or they might turn you on to somebody else that you can go shadow with. So really meeting these doctors, whether it's at a seminar or an alumni event, going and shadowing in their office, which we've talked about the last couple of episodes, and getting to know how different offices run and different things that you like and different things you don't like can really open you up to being very clear about what you want in your future job and in your future practice.
And one thing that I want to just emphasize is that last year that you're in school, you're trying to hit your clinical milestones and see the amount of patients and log the amount of hours that you need to. But within that, there should be some additional time, some extra time, and you want to maximize that time. Don't go golfing and things like that. You can if you're just into enjoying everything, but I guess what I'm getting at is have a sense of urgency that last year, even if you have to push yourself to feel it, because there is urgency. That graduation time is upcoming, and you want to really put the odds in your favor so that you're not leaving it just to chance when that happens. And that requires the daily grind of putting the mindset and having yourself in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. And even leading up to that last year, if you're shadowing these doctors and you're visiting other locations, you're getting an idea of where you want to end up too. So that's the idea that once you get into that last year, you have an idea of the location you're interested in. And maybe the location isn't as important as finding the right chiropractor to work under, but knowing that can help with clarifying where you're going to be and what doctors you're going to reach out to that last year and see if they're interested in having an associate or finding an associate position in those places. So some people I've talked to, they don't necessarily have a location, and that's not bad if you don't know that, because you're open to then just finding the ideal job. But if you do kind of start narrowing down that location for your last year, that's good. And you can really start meeting chiropractors in that area if you've found an area that you're interested in.
Yeah, and the whole process is one of elimination, right? You're going to be ruling in and ruling out, just like if you're diagnosing somebody. You want to rule in and rule out potential styles of practice or, a bad fit for you. If you want to practice in a certain way and you shadow another chiropractor and they are doing it a completely different way or a way that you hadn't thought of that you like. Same with a location. You're just trying to figure it all out and make better decisions as you go. And, visiting those locations during the breaks can really help you to do that. And especially if you do, narrow it down to a particular location, you want to meet chiropractors in that area. That's a good way to just figure out the lay of the land to get input from those folks on what it's like to actually practice there. One other thing you want to do during this time is begin developing your resume. You want to put together something that's going to be attractive to a potential employer. And I think employers realize that you're going to be coming straight out of school and maybe not have a whole lot of work history. And that's okay. It comes down to really what you can do for that employer. But you want to, again, put the odds in your favor by developing a resume that shows that you are there to help them and that you are a good fit for them. And that takes some time to think through and put together.
Yes. And also during this time, you want to send out letters inquiring about associate positions. So specifically, if you have an area that you're looking at that maybe there aren't any jobs posted on any of the job boards, then you're really going to want to send out letters to that area to find that ideal spot for you to land in.
And like with anything, you have to be able to, in business, you have to You have to come across or figure out what is your unique selling proposition. And really, it's what makes you different than the next person or the next company. What's unique about you? And so one of the ways you can do that is you can create a job proposal. And I will guarantee you that there aren't many associates showing up to an interview who have a proposal. If you can address that potential employer's needs and show that you go over and above, and the way that starts is here's this job proposal, then you're already ahead of a lot of the people that may be competing or interviewing for that position.
Yeah. And so when I was putting the outline together for this podcast, I get a lot of questions about what doctors are looking for and how do I find the right doctor. And so I put together a list, and different doctors have different reasons and different timelines for hiring an associate. So I have a few bullet points to explain those. The first one is some chiropractors just have an immediate need. And this is how we were in our Colorado office. If we had an associate that was leaving, then we had about 30 days to fill that spot. And we were looking for the best person that would apply in that time frame. But we needed somebody that already had their Colorado license, that was already living in Colorado, and was prepared to take the position over in a quick manner. So for us, we needed someone now. And if you're applying while you're in school, then that you wouldn't be the right person for that job. But you don't know that going into applying for jobs. And so that shouldn't hold you back from applying to whatever jobs you see on the job boards, whether you're looking at the classifieds at school or those resources to find the best position for yourself.
Another possibility is that they have an immediate need and they aren't too picky. It's typically a large office with a steady flow of patients, and the office markets a lot and has several associates handling the flow of patients, typically working long hours and seeing loads of patients. These are high volume practices that want to get somebody in there. When I say not too picky, I mean they probably are just looking for another set of hands. They get you in there and the adjustments happen pretty quickly, and that's how the high volume practice operates. If they don't have that extra set of hands, then they're losing money.
Yeah. So if you are applying to that type of position, then they are looking to have you in there now. So it's another time where you're going to probably need your license, be living in that state, and be ready to play, be ready to, join the group and get started. But they're going to teach you how to do everything. They aren't too concerned about all of the possible skills that you come to the office with, but you're bringing your hands and you're ready to get to work. The next one is that they don't have an immediate need, and they know exactly what they're looking for. So they're looking for the right person to fill that job. They may already have other associates, and they're looking for the next perfect fit to join the group. So they're hiring ahead of the chaos, and they're looking for a specific person. This is when it's very important to have your skill set visible in your resume and in that job proposal, so that they know that you're the right person for that job.
Because these type of employers aren't in a pinch and aren't in a rush, they're going to be more choosy, and that's a good thing, because what tends to happen in those is it's probably going to be a longer relationship, right? You're probably going to be there longer. At least they want you to be there a little bit longer. And for you, as someone coming into that environment, it's nice because I think it's a great learning environment. I mean, you're going to learn anywhere you go, but there's almost like a mentorship that can happen when in that sort of a relationship. But just know that employer has a different set of needs and a different timeline, and so you need to be sensitive to that.
Yeah. So while we're talking about these, hopefully you're kind of feeling like you know where you're going to fit in when you're looking for these jobs. And, when you're applying for associate position, you won't have any idea of what the hiring doctor is looking for, most likely if you're looking just at the classified ads, and you won't know the timeline that they're working with. And that's why it's important to be on the offense and working on finding the ideal associate position for yourself, and reaching out to all of these different people and keeping track of them and knowing what they're looking for and where you can fit in best.
So there's another type of person that's out there, and maybe they're not looking, but it's someone who's been thinking about adding an associate for a while, but they just haven't taken that final step to try to find that person. It's just been sort of rolling around in their brain. And so that's a potential person that you can reach out to and let them know, hey, if you've ever thought about hiring an associate, I'm available. Here's my resume. But that's kind of, the rundown of the different type of employers that are out there. And so here's some of the questions that we got. I guess you ready to do the Q&A?
Yeah, I think these are the questions that you guys have submitted to us. So thank you for doing that. You can find us on Instagram at Lifestyle Practice, and that's where most of these questions came in. So let's talk through them.
Okay, I'm going to read this first one. So the first question is, how early would you recommend looking for being an associate at an office, considering graduation and taking your licensing exam? Great question.
Yeah, and I think sooner than later, of course, with anything, because you don't know the timeline of the hiring doctor. So if the doctor is one of those ones that's not looking for an immediate fill, but they're looking for the right associate, then they'll be willing to wait. But if you're reaching out to some of these and they have an immediate need, then you may not be the perfect person, but you can always keep track of those and reach back out to them when you do finally have your license, if you haven't found a job yet. And so, sooner than later, but keeping track of, who you're talking to, and the right doctor may be willing to wait for you. So this is why you need to be on the offense, finding the ideal associate position, reaching out and talking to whoever you can.
And if you're dealing with one of those potential employers who is looking for the right person, I've seen many, many times that they're willing to wait. They'll hold a spot open for you because you've got that relationship and you are what they are looking for, and you can work with them. You need to count on about 90 days. It can be less. Each state has its own process, its own, state board who approves licenses. But getting insurance into insurance networks, that may or may not be a factor. That whole process from the time of graduation to getting licensed and in network can take up to 90 days most of the time. And so the more that you have lined up ahead of time, like Haley's saying, the more prepared you are, then the more you can make those things happen, much quicker, because you're going to need to get copies of your transcripts from your school, and you want to already figure out who's going to do that, how that process works, and what they need to make that happen. So a lot of those kind of things can be prepared for up front.
Okay, the next question we got was, how would you recommend looking for an associateship as a student? And this is something that we've, gone through in the beginning of this podcast, and I've talked about over the last couple episodes. All of the things that you can be doing while you're in school, the working in an office, meeting doctors at seminars, going to alumni events and networking events, shadowing chiropractors, reading the classifieds at the school, sending inquiry letters to the area you're interested in, or doctors who specialize in your similar interests. So just putting yourself out there, meeting as many potential employers as you can, that is all going to help you find that job.
All right, next question. I don't have any place in particular I'm wanting to live, and I'm flexible on where I go. I'm more concerned with finding someone before graduation that I can meet and get to know them before signing a contract with them. I'm only a try-4, but I feel myself questioning how I will find the right fit for me.
So if you aren't concerned with location, then leaning towards finding the right fit for your specialty should be your focus. Meet doctors. Again, I'm going to be kind of a broken record here, but meeting the doctors at seminars and the specialized organizations, you can shadow as many of them as you can and try to rule out locations and specialties. So while you're in school, you're trying to really narrow in. If you don't care where you go, then it's really going to be looking for that ideal mentor for where you want to specialize. So finding those people at seminars in those specialized organizations, like the ICPA, that kind of thing, that's really going to help you narrow in and find that ideal associate position for yourself.
Another thing that you want to check out is what it's like to live in a particular location you're considering. You might think that being near the beach is where it's at and what you've always wanted. But if you dig deeper into it, like let's say you choose a specific town, then you want to go to Data City Search or something like that and look at the demographics, look at the cost of living, find out about the education level there. All these different factors affect what it's like in real life to live there. I know that when I go on a vacation, sometimes I'm immediately thinking, we should just move here. This is the greatest place on earth. And for vacation purposes, it might be, but it might be a different thing when it comes time to actually living there. And You can find all this stuff online. You can Google the top 100 places to live and read why that is. This is done usually annually by different publications. But look at those things as well. You might want to consider reaching out to the local chiropractic association. They'll tell you what it's like to practice there, and there are considerations when it comes to practice. State laws vary, and that affects your ability to collect, what it is you do in terms of your scope of practice and how it works with insurance and your collections. So those are some of the things you'll want to consider when you're narrowing, ruling in, ruling out the places you think you might want to go.
So those were some of the questions we got. Now we're going to move on to the fun part. And this was a question actually too. So what are red flags to look out for? And the person stated that chiro school isn't going to help us find a good doc to associate with. And that might depend on what school you're at. But what are some of the red flags? So I'll talk about the first one. The first one is that it's not a good fit. So you have a different specialty, philosophy, you have different values than the hiring doctor. And that's really those are things, really prime things that you want to look at when you start looking for a job, is paying attention to how good of a fit that job is for you.
Yeah. And to use, the chiropractic analogy of being in alignment, you want that doctor's specialty, philosophy, values, and approach to care to be aligned with yours. And that extends to things like practice management groups, the use of scripts and processes, again, that don't really align with all of the way you want to practice, the way you see yourself practicing.
So another thing to look at is what Rich was just talking about, cost of living versus the salary of the position. So I was helping someone actually this week, and they were looking at two different places, very similar cost of living, but one of the jobs paid considerably more. So you really want to pay attention to cost of living. I know in Colorado, at least for us, the insurance, the way it paid versus the cost of living was very different. So that is something that you want to pay attention to.
Hopefully in talking to people that you're considering working for, you want to make sure that they seem organized and prepared to bring on an associate. And what I mean by that is I've seen situations where the employer figures out they couldn't afford to pay the associate after they hired the associate. They didn't do the math ahead of time to make sure that they had the ability to pay that associate the agreed upon salary. And so that's a difficult topic to broach when you are trying to get a job and going through the interview process. But it is okay in the negotiations to talk numbers. In fact, that's usually when that happens before the contract is signed, when you talk about the expectations of, if they have a quota of how many patients they want you to see, or if they have a bonus structure where there are different levels, and if you bill $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month, you get a pay increase. But when you're talking about those, it's okay to say, well, how many people are you bringing in now? And what do you charge for those patients? Because that's just part of that discussion. If that doctor doesn't know their numbers and isn't really sure, then that's a potential red flag.
Yeah, and a lot of times, you can ask if they've had other associates. So if they've had other associates, then they're probably more comfortable with that than knowing that they can bring on another one or replace one that's leaving with you. But if it's their first time, then you really want to pay attention to those things. So the next one is that once you get to the agreement or the contract part, it's actually set up as an independent contractor agreement, and it's not a true associate agreement. So you really want to pay attention to, is this person hiring you and bringing you on as an associate, or are they trying to act like it's an independent contractor agreement? And if you have any questions about that, you can go back to one of our episodes. We talk about the difference between independent contractor and associate. So you'll see why that's a bad deal for you. If you're coming on as an employee, you want an associate contract.
You want to make sure that you are going to get the right amount of guidance for what you need. If you're strictly looking for a paycheck, then you may not want a whole lot of guidance. But if you're looking for more of a mentorship, mentee, I think that's the right word. I don't know. If you're looking for more of that sort of relationship, then hopefully you'll get a sense of that in talking to the chiropractor, or definitely if you're shadowing with the chiropractor, see what they're teaching you and make sure that they're willing to help you. I would say that most are, but that might not be the case. So you want to make sure you're going to get the right amount of guidance for what you need.
The next red flag is sort of like the unorganized or unprepared. The person who's hiring you want to make sure that they have a long-term need for you, that you're not just coming in to fill a position that might turn out to be long-term, that they are truly bringing you on. They're expecting you to be there for at least a year, and there's nothing that would possibly end that relationship sooner if the need doesn't exist anymore. Like if someone leaves for maternity leave and they're going to come back and then they don't need you, then that's going to be a red flag for you that maybe it's not long term.
And this next one is harder to really identify before you work at a practice, but that's shady billing practices. You don't want to what happens is if there's an investigation for improper billing into the owner and there's some sort of, they're kicked out of a network or you're red flagged and put on a list, it's not just the owner. It's everyone in that practice, and they can be barred from participating in any of the insurance networks in that state. And so when you're an associate, you're still on the hook, I guess is what I'm saying. So one of the things you can do is you can check them out. The OIG, Office of Inspector General, if you Google this, has a exclusion list. And if there's ever been a Medicare violation, this Medicare only, you can put in that doctor's name and it will tell you that. So that's one of the things that you can do. Conversation with the CA can help as well. You don't want to say, is this guy cheating or not? I mean, no one's going to tell you that, but sort of observe them and just ask general questions about how they bill and the time frames for billing, how often do they bill, things like that, and just sort of feel that situation out.
Yeah, I think as many questions as you can ask and feeling out the job. And then also just really paying attention to those little things. So is the employer bad-mouthing patients or bad-mouthing or poor treatment of the CAs? Paying attention to how this person is interacting with you and then how they interact with their office staff and how the office staff interacts with them. They could be maybe they're being really nice to the staff, but the staff is kind of looking at them funny or, just paying attention to those little things, I think, while you're there. And knowing what you're looking for is important.
Another thing that you want to observe is or find out is how does the doctor grow the practice?
Yeah, and so that can lead into seeing how, if they have shady marketing tactics, they probably have shady billing practices. So paying attention to those small details, again, are really going to alert you to if the doctor is a red flag or not.
And I don't want to overuse the word shady, but I mean, that's the right word, I guess, is someone who's got a shady contract. You can read through contracts. And by the way, when it comes to contracts, always have somebody take a look at it. Definitely an attorney is going to give you a legal opinion, and it's worth the money up front to have an attorney look at a contract. But before then, someone's not an attorney. Like I've reviewed a lot of contracts, and I always put that disclaimer out there. I'm not an attorney. Go see an attorney for a real legal opinion. But people who have read a lot of contracts can give you their opinions, things to look out for, and then you can take that final draft to your attorney. But there's things that I've seen in contracts that you want to stay away from. One would be a non-compete that is just ridiculous. There's a lot of variation in, depending on if you're in a urban area or a rural area. There are things that are unfair in contracts. There are pay structures that are not really good at all. And so if they're shady in the contract, and I've seen this, I saw one a year ago or 2 years ago where the associate had to buy, and I'm using air quotes, a license to work in the clinic, and the license included being able to wear logo on their shirt, and it helped to pay for a sign and a rebranding of this person's clinic. And I cannot imagine someone coming straight out of school, getting a job and owing money to their employer. I thought it was ridiculous. So that kind of stuff happens, and that fits under my definition of shady for sure.
Yes, I've read through several of those contracts and tell people immediately to run from that place, that will not be a good job. And I've had people that I've mentored through that process that ended up taking the job, and sure enough, a month later are emailing me, asking me questions about how to get out of the contract. So it's best just to realize that that's not a good place for you, and there are good places that you can find and plenty of great chiropractors out there to look for. So So talking about all these red flags, that's a good lead in to talking about the Ideal Associate course that we've put together. We've been able to help so many new chiropractors in the past find the job of their dreams, and we want to help more of you guys. So the Ideal Associate course is an online course, and there's going to be 5 modules. I'm going to let Rich talk about it because he's the one mostly putting this together, and he knows the most about it. So.
Well, there are 5 modules, and those are delivered over 5 weeks. And the first one is really getting clear on what you want. You know, like one of the questions we read earlier, not sure where you want to go. Well, you need to figure that out. You need to figure out your financial picture. When we say you need to be aligned with somebody, that starts with what your core values and philosophy and approach, to care is, and really getting clear on those things so that you can make sure that you are finding the right person for you. Module 2 is prospecting and starting the conversation. So that's really, how you have that first conversation. How do you approach them? Do you email them? Do you just call them? How soon should you be doing that? The timeline that goes with that. All of that, there's sort of a dance to it, and we want to teach you the steps for that. The next one is creating a resume that will impress, and that's module 3. It's all about what goes in the resume, especially if you're a student that doesn't have much work experience other than mostly just being in school. How do you formulate this and put this together into one sheet that will separate you and make you stand out from maybe the other resumes that this particular employer has collected. Then module 4, it goes into interview prep. We're going to talk about how to have that interview, things to ask, things not to ask, and how that works. And then lastly, contract review and negotiation. So let's say you've got that offer or you have a few offers. How do you compare them? What do you look for? What are the things that you don't look for? What do the terms of a contract mean? Maybe some legal definitions that you haven't seen before that are all new to you. And then how to negotiate from there. And there's a million different pay structures, and some are straight commission, some are salary plus commissions. It just depends. But we'll take you through some of the most common ways that chiropractors are paid, and then some of the key tips and things that you want when it comes down to negotiation, not just salary, but the terms of the contract.
And along with all of those modules, you put together several bonus items that go along with them. So what are those?
One of them is a budget worksheet. You want to figure out if somebody says to you, I'm going to offer you $50,000 a year. I can't tell you if this works for you. Only you can tell if this works for you because you're the one that knows your expenses. Or maybe you've never sat down to write them all out. So we've got a worksheet that will automatically add up all of what your budget is and help you work through what your expenses are, what your income is, and this is for you and your spouse if there's someone else, or significant other if there's someone else involved in that financial situation. There's a lead tracking worksheet so that you can stay organized with everyone that you're going to reach out to and keep, again, this is part of narrowing it down, ruling in and ruling out. It helps you to eliminate really being overwhelmed with the whole process and keep everything organized. Resume cover letter and letter of inquiry. So you don't want to just submit a resume. You want a letter that goes with that. Sometimes that can be a physical, hard copy. Sometimes it's an email. Just depends, but you want that to go with it as well. And a letter of inquiry could be a letter. It's a letter that you would send to somebody who maybe is not hiring or hadn't thought of hiring, and you want to let them know that you're available. This might trigger them to, that person who was always thinking about it but too busy, and now you presented yourself, and now that gets them into action. An employment proposal template, and we talked about this early, but that is really so that you can differentiate yourself and show a potential employer what it is that you can do. Thank you letter template. Did we talk about a resume template?
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have a resume template. This is a tried and true template that I've helped recent grads with, and it's helped them to get their jobs, and it's organized in a way that presents, I think, really well to potential employers. The Chiropractic Associate checklist. So all of this, a checklist for you, everything in chronological order so that from start to finish, you know the timeline and what needs to be done. And then, of course, we have our Facebook group for feedback, encouragement, networking, so on and so forth.
Okay, that's a whole lot of stuff, I would say. So very helpful to get the course and have all of those things on your side. And we're going to talk about some things that maybe you're thinking in your head, but is kind of holding you back from maybe getting the course and help you try to figure those things out. So maybe you're on the fence, maybe you are looking for an associate job, but you're not sure this course will really help you. So maybe you're thinking you don't need help. Well, and you're going to hear this from Felicia later on in the podcast, but experience always helps. You could find a job, but we want to help you find a better job. So that's why when we want to help guide you to the ideal associate position, we want to steer you clear of mistakes, red flags, missteps that will take you back in the process. And you can learn from the mistakes of all the associates that we've interviewed and then all the students that we've helped. There are great jobs out there. We want to help you find the one that's right for you and make sure you're the best candidate for the job. I mean, that's a very important piece of it. You might find the ideal job, but are you the ideal person for that job?
So we're coming at this from the standpoint of, we have not only hired associates, but we've helped countless others meet their hiring chiropractors, create resumes, apply. We've reviewed contracts and we walk them through that process and they've gotten those jobs and we help them steer clear of a bad associate job as well. And being on the hiring end, we know what hiring chiropractors are looking for, and that's going to be different for different types of practices, but really it boils down to a few key things. And we know what you need to do in that competitive environment to differentiate yourself and, again, put the odds in your favor of getting that job that you really, really want.
Yeah. And so it's an online course and you can work at your own pace through the course. You can learn from our experience. You can get feedback in the Facebook group that we're going to create that's solely for the people that have purchased the course to ask questions. And having this knowledge before you set foot into an interview is going to give you more confidence, and it's going to give you that competitive advantage over the others that didn't invest in a course or get help to finding that job and being the right person for the job. You'll also have more awareness of what you need to be looking for to figure out whether the job is a good one and a good fit for you, because we won't be at the interview with you, but we're going to let you know all of the things you really need to be paying attention to. Some of them we talked about in this podcast, but things that you need to be looking for, those little details that will alert you to whether that's a good job or not. Some of you may be thinking, I don't have time to spend on this right now, but honestly, if you don't take time now to figure this out, then you'll be behind at graduation. You won't have anything lined up and unsure of your future, wandering around, taking missteps, wasting time, trying to reinvent the wheel. And we have it figured out. We can save you that time. And this should be the fun part of going to school and figuring out what you're going to do after graduation. And it should excite you. And I promise you that you will find the time for what excites you. And honestly, if you have a spouse that wants to help, let them watch the videos and help you walk through this process. So you can find the time. The videos will be short and the templates will make it easier for you to tailor them to your situation. So really it'll save you time than kind of just wandering around, not knowing what you're doing and overwhelmed about the whole process. So another thing I want to touch on is that this is a pre-sale discount. We're discounting the course by over 50% while we continue to put it together. So it's only going to be $97 until the modules start rolling out on October 12th. So to get that discount, buy it by October 12th. And we know there are several of you that need the course now. You're nearing the end of school. You want to find the ideal associate position, but you already know you aren't doing any of the things we've been talking about to get yourself there. Take advantage of this discount. Even if you're in the beginning of school and you know you want to find an associate position, this course will be, if you purchase it now, you will still have access to it when the time comes. And it's something that you can always be working on and know all of these red flags and everything that you're looking for. So take advantage of this discount. In less than 2 weeks, you can hit the ground running, start checking boxes on the checklist and following the steps to find your ideal associate position. And some of you may be thinking, well, I don't know if I should spend that money, but honestly, $97 is a steal. And even at $197 when the course goes live, that's what it's going to cost. will provide so much clarity. And I know that you all are paying for much more expensive seminars. And so $97 just to really nail down this process should be nothing. If you are uncertain or overwhelmed by this process, then buying the course will give you the plan you need to work through. And you'll feel excited for the process, have confidence in your future, just like you're investing in building your knowledge about your specialty, the technique, and becoming a doctor. Investing in this course will give you the knowledge you need in order to find the right job for your future. So utilize those skills and start your career in a good place. And I think to me, that's priceless. So let's go ahead and listen to what Felicia Campbell has to say about working with Rich to find the associate job she worked for the last 2-ish years while saving up to open her own practice. Here she is now.
My name is Dr. Felicia Campbell, and I am a December 2018 graduate of Cleveland University, Kansas City. So I've actually known Dr. Day for a couple of years now. I got to know him on a personal level, and I just wanted to share a couple of things that he really helped me with as I was transitioning from student to real-life doctor. A little background about me. I did not grow up in a chiropractic family. I am the first chiropractor, and so I really didn't know how to start this transition, going from a student and going out into the real world and applying for jobs and everything. Now, I also knew I wanted to do an associate position. That was something that was pretty set in my mind. It wasn't really going to change at that time. And so I thought about going to Dr. Day because him and his wife owned a practice. They still practice. And I thought, well, if he was wanting to hire an associate, what would he look for being a business owner? And so I knew I wanted to go back towards my hometown. And at the time, unfortunately, there really weren't a lot of associate positions available. So I was kind of panicking because I was a month out from graduation and I had no set plans. My plan was to build up the resume and send it out blind and just hope that someone found interest in me. So I went to Dr. Day, and the first thing he did is he helped me sit down and kind of go over what to put in a resume, the little things to add, things maybe not to add, maybe more important points. He even gave me a site to use that I could create my resume. And so over the next couple of days, I took the time, really put my resume together, definitely a rough draft. And then when I was done with it, I sent it back to him. And luckily for me, he ended up, marking off some things that I thought maybe were important. And, he made little changes here and there, again, because he wanted me to send out the best version of this resume that I could to these employers. The next thing he had me do is he said, okay, what kind of practices are you looking for? And I knew I wanted to do more kind of wellness, family kind of practices to start out in my career. So he said, okay, go ahead and start researching those. So I started researching, kind of put a pile together. I can't remember how many, maybe 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. And then I ended up sending them to him because I said, hey, I want you to look at these sites and give me your honest opinion. What do you think? We looked at several different sites and okay, these are good. But I remember we looked at one and half of the buttons didn't work. It was super vague. It just wasn't a very good presentation, I thought. And, again, I didn't really think about that because at this point, again, I was kind of desperate. I wanted to start paying off my loans. I was nervous about making any money. How am I going to do this out in the real world? I wouldn't have even thought to look at, kind of a vague site versus one that was super detailed. I took my resume and I sent it to those practices that we thought would be a good fit for me. And then I kind of sat and had the waiting game. Now, luckily for me, I ended up finding a job a little bit away from my hometown, but not too far. And it ended up being a great fit for me. But of course, once you start the job and they hand you the contract and you're like, oh my gosh, I was very overwhelmed personally because I didn't know what the contract should include, what's good, what's bad. I mean, there's little things here and there that, you don't really know much about. And so first person I contacted was Dr. Day. Would you mind going over my contract for me? And he, without hesitation, went ahead and looked over it. And he talked about a couple things to negotiate, things to ask, is this included? Is this not included? Little things in the contract that, again, that I just kind of went right over. And I'm so thankful that I got a hold of him because I ended up negotiating a little bit with my boss. We came to an agreement. I signed the contract. And here I am 2 years later, still in this associate position. And so it was a great fit for me. I've gotten so much growth out of this job. And I know I have grown so much over the past 2 years, and I cannot thank Dr. Day enough for really taking the time to help me in this journey, because again, I had no idea what I was doing. And without his help, I don't know if I would have been in the job that I have today. And so I just really want to encourage you guys all to take the time, find the job that really fits you guys best. Don't just jump into the first opportunity, because you may find your forever job if you really take the time to present yourself and really find what you're looking for in an associate position. But I just want to wish you all the best of luck. Dr. Day has really some great tips, some great advice on helping you guys really start to look for that associate position. So I would highly encourage that you guys reach out to him and use his knowledge to help you guys find that perfect job.
If you're wondering if the Ideal Associate course is right for you, wouldn't you rather be applying for jobs, having the experience of walking through this course? Every module of the course will give you clarity about what you're looking for and the steps you need to take in order to find your Ideal Associate position. It's going to give you confidence about walking through the process and your own awesomeness. You will outshine the others involved, and you're going to have that competitive advantage because knowing more will allow you to do better and be the ideal candidate for that job. You won't be the only candidate applying, and having invested in this course will give you that competitive advantage over the others. We're excited to work with you. You can visit theidealassociate.com to take the associate quiz and learn more about what it's going to take for you to land the associate position of your dreams. And if you want to go straight to learn more about the course, you want to save the time and master this, then visit the post for this podcast at lifestylepracticebuilders.com/blog/148, or visit our website, lifestylepracticebuilders.com. Click on resources and click on the Ideal Associate course. You can also send us a DM on Instagram at Lifestyle Practice, or me, Dr. Haley Day, DrHaleyDay, or find me on Facebook and we'll get you the link there. We'll also answer any questions you have if you send them our way. So if you have a question about the course or a question about your direction, anything, go ahead and find me on Facebook. Send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. I respond to messages all the time, and I'm happy to do that. If anyone has sent me a message, I respond, and it's really me. I'm a real person and I want to help. So I hope you guys have an awesome week. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Go check that out, theidealassociate.com. Take the quiz and let's get you started in the right direction. Have an awesome day.
If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please share it with your friends on Instagram and Facebook. And for those of you who are already subscribers, we really appreciate it. Thanks for the reviews. We love reading those and knowing that you're loving the podcast. If you're looking for more tips and inspiration, be sure to check us out at lifestylepracticebuilders.com or join our business and marketing Facebook group for chiropractors at facebook.com/group/lifestylepractice.